The BBC is going to tell us why the Odyssey has caused so much controversy. I mean, I could make this a very short time of it. Black Helen of Troy and Elliot Page. Thank you. Good night.
I have to disagree with Gary about this because those two don't even make it into a top 3 problems of Nolan Odyssey. Those casting choices were made so shilling media can call us all forms of easts and phobes, allowing them to be as intellectually disingenuous as possible. Hi, I'm Potato Crusader and welcome to the series so mythical that even Achilles subscribed. Now let's begin. I absolutely hate everything about this movie and it have not come out yet. So in the glory of Metatron, the grift shall continue. When I recorded my first video about Nolan cultural abomination, I called this movie useless. My current best description for it is disingenuous and vile. Both Lupita and Elliot probably won't have that much of a screen time. But because of being the easiest controversy, they are getting the most attention. So criticism about any other aspects of this thing, this cultural abomination by Nolan, can be deflected on those two actors.
The Emily Wilson. That's the other reason.
For me, the top 1 problem will be Emily Wilson translation, because it's also a source of my top 3 problem, the dialogue. With top 2 being ridiculous looking costumes. Using specifically Emily Wilson translation have nothing to do with translation quality. It's a pure act of activism, and Odyssey is not a place for activism. The same goes with casting Lupita specifically as the Helen of Troy. People pushing back against the backlash for this decision will say, oh, we don't want to see a black people on the screen.
And indeed, the vast majority of the cast is white.
But one of the few black women was cast specifically to play the most beautiful woman in the world. The face that launched 1,000 ships. And for some reason now she is also playing her twin sister that was not a twin originally. So now there are 2 women that have a face that launch 1,000 ships. Maybe that could cause some logical problems. Are they gonna launch 2,000 ships now, or Paris could just pick her sister that looks the same? The story of Helen heavily relies on how she looks. So race swapping this particular character is impossible to be done without impacting the story. But those people who choose to be disingenuous about this will just say we don't want to see a black people on the screen. Just like the rumor about Elliot playing specifically Achilles. This rumor is basically debunked now, and I feel it was made only to cause as much outrage as possible, then later disprove it and own the charts. So, source of the outrage would not be that we don't want to see those actors in the film. It is about casting those specific actors as those specific characters, which makes suspension of disbelief not go out the window, but fly directly into stratosphere. And I absolutely know that Gary is probably aware of all the things I said, but the clip I put at the start of this video is still a perfect ammunition for the shields. So for me, those 2 casting choices are just a distraction from a real vile intention of this movie. And my main reason for disdain for this movie is that a group of people that for years were preaching about representation, preaching against the cultural appropriation, are now taking one of the most important pieces of Greek literature, which is a foundation of entire Europe culture, and making it look like another piece of Marvel slop recorded in LA. In case of production of someone like Christopher Nolan, you can't call those things incompetence. Those are deliberate choices. It was a choice to make everybody talk with American accent. It was a choice to not cast a single Greek. It was a choice to not make those actors even look Greek passing. Everything about this movie looks like it was made with pure disdain and contempt for European culture. Tom Holland on the set of Odyssey looks basically the same, just like Tom Holland on the set of Spider-Man. There is no difference. No makeup, no characterization, nothing. But at the same time, Nolan will say that he won't use orchestra because that won't be historically accurate. So is this movie supposed to be historically accurate, or is it Batman vs Spider-Man isekai? This is a source material that should feel poetic and epic, but everything we know about this movie makes it look ridiculous.
Batman, I would say Batman is not historically accurate, but why is Batman on my Odyssey?
This is something else than terrible adaptation of a novel, video game, or comic book. By what we saw on the trailers and interviews and behind the scenes, this is going to be the most Hollywood film as humanly possible. And making it that way makes it feel like it is intentionally spitting on entire European culture. And because it is Nolan, you have to assume everything you see in this movie is intentional. It is not Netflix adaptation done by some hack. Something at this scale feels like completely deliberate, intentional, replacing Greek and European culture with Hollywood slop. And adapting the Odyssey is not a place for that. This awful dialogue we see in the trailers, and promoting it as an action film, makes it look like a film targeted to the lowest common denominator. And Odyssey for lowest common denominator is not the Odyssey. The only thing that dumb action movie gets from being called the Odyssey is a stolen glory. And people who will go and watch it because it's a dumb action movie directed by Christopher Nolan won't get any benefit from interacting with the source, which is the Odyssey.
Christopher Nolan's last film, the Oscar-winning Oppenheimer, was about the invention of the atomic bomb and the ethics of killing tens of thousands of civilians in a global conflict.
And for some reason, that film does not need to have a cast representative of the world.
What is about a swords and sandals fantasy epic that is so upsetting? Before you get started, BBC, I'm sure I can find a BBC article where they talk about whitewashing. I'm pretty sure.
I wonder why characters of Oppenheimer have no need to be representative of the world. Everything we know about the Odyssey is a giant pile of hypocrisy and contradictions.
And there's this thing that I like called consistency of argument. You know, not perfect at it, but consistency of argument, just, being honest.
And it's hard to get as blatantly dishonest as Nolan's Odyssey and its defense. All this talk about cultural appropriation and representation proven to go only one way.
What Black Panther shows us is that there is a whole host of people who get the misrepresentation that Africa has had and who...
Wakanda's not real.
So, when filming Black Panther, it is important to represent Africa. But when filming adaptation of the Odyssey, let's make it as American as possible. I just can't wait to see a scene when Odysseus is going to make a hot dog out of Polyphemus wiener and top it with Big Mac sauce just to make sure it's American enough.
I was amused by all of these bros suddenly worrying about Greek culture. Well, the Greeks are worried about Greek culture. And it's not just Greek culture, it's culture. It's culture. It's replacing somebody else's culture with something when it's not okay to do it the other way.
But of course we are racist monsters because we don't want to see European culture erased. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely don't think that Hollywood is representative of Americans anyway.
Much of the grumbling has consisted of conservative fears that the film might be too liberal. We just want the story to be told. Homer's Odyssey is not a conservative story or a liberal story. It is a story that should be adapted to the spirit of the source material.
And this is what I was talking about at the start. Just discarding all the criticism, calling it a conservative whining. As far as I know, representation and cultural appropriation are not the things that are oftenly talked about by conservatives.
Well, how is this not cultural appropriation? Hollywood is the best at cultural appropriation.
Just as Gary says in his video that of course will be linked in the description, the movie have not come out yet. Maybe I'm wrong and it's somehow respectful to the Homer, but what we see in trailers and promo materials is absolutely awful. And doing something that is at this scale is that disrespectful, and it looks completely intentional. It's just vile to me. So with everything we know about this movie, I absolutely still think this movie deserves a boycott more than any other film that ever was produced. Because of the matter of its scale, its source material, and how disrespectful it seems and how in your face this disrespect is. I don't believe it can be a proper flop, but it still can be underperforming, still can be considered a failure, and it absolutely should be. If you got to this point of the video, thank you. That's all I had to say for today, and I will see you in the next one.